What if I told you that a single book could destroy a 20-year marriage in less than 5 minutes? My name is Sarah, and I'm about to tell you the most shocking story of betrayal, revenge, and justice you've ever heard. But first, let me take you back to the moment my world exploded. It was a Tuesday evening. Rain hammered against the windows of our suburban home. I was folding laundry in our bedroom when I heard the front door slam. Not the gentle close of someone coming home from work. The violent bang of someone with purpose. Sarah. My husband Mark's voice echoed through the hallway. But something was wrong. His tone was different. Cold. Commanding. I set down the towel I was holding and walked toward the stairs. That's when I heard it. A woman's laugh. Light. Carefree. Coming from my living room. My heart stopped. 20 years of marriage. 20 years of building a life together. And in that moment, I knew everything was about to change. I descended the stairs slowly. Each step felt like walking toward my own execution. The hardwood creaked beneath my feet. A sound I'd heard thousands of times before. But tonight, it sounded like a countdown. As I rounded the corner into the living room, I saw them. Mark stood near the fireplace. His expensive suit was slightly wrinkled. His tie loosened. But it wasn't his appearance that made my blood freeze. It was the woman beside him. Tall. Blonde. Beautiful in that effortless way that made other women hate her instantly. And in her arms, a child. A little boy who couldn't have been more than 3 years old. With Mark's dark hair. Mark's green eyes. Mark's stubborn chin. Sarah. Mark's voice cut through the silence like a blade. We need to talk. The woman, this stranger holding my husband's child, smiled at me. Not apologetic. Not embarrassed. Triumphant. Actually, she said, her voice sickeningly sweet, we need you to sign something. Mark reached into his jacket pocket. Pulled out a manila folder. Set it on the coffee table between us like a weapon. Divorce papers, he said. No emotion. No regret. Like he was discussing the weather. My legs nearly gave out. I gripped the back of our leather sofa. The same sofa where we'd watched movies every Friday night for 15 years. Mark. I whispered. What is this? This is Jessica, he said, nodding toward the woman. And this is our son, Tyler. Our son. Not my son. Our son. Jessica shifted the child in her arms. He was beautiful. Perfect. And he was proof that my husband had been living a double life. How long? The words barely escaped my throat. 4 years, Mark said without hesitation. Jessica and I met at a conference in Chicago. What we have is real, Sarah. What you and I had, it's been over for a long time. 4 years. 4 years of lies. 4 years of business trips that weren't business trips. 4 years of late nights that weren't spent at the office. You have a choice, Jessica said, bouncing the little boy gently. Sign the papers, take what we're offering, and leave quietly. Or we can make this messy. I looked at the folder on the table. My hands were shaking so violently I could barely focus. What are you offering? Mark's expression didn't change. $500,000. The house is worth 2.5. I'm being generous. $500,000. For 20 years of marriage. For the home I'd decorated. For the garden I'd planted. For the life I'd built. And if I don't sign? Jessica's smile widened. Then the whole world learns about your little problem. My blood turned to ice. What problem? The drinking, Sarah. Mark's voice was calm. Calculated. The prescription pills. The mental health issues. I stared at him. This man I'd loved. This man I'd trusted with my deepest secrets. My darkest moments. You know that's not. I went to therapy. I got help. I've been clean for 3 years. But do the courts know that? Jessica asked. Do your friends know that? Does your son know that? My son. Our 18-year-old son, Michael, who was upstairs in his room studying for his college entrance exams. You wouldn't, I whispered. Try us, Mark said. That's when I heard footsteps on the stairs. Slow. Deliberate. Michael appeared at the bottom of the staircase. He'd inherited my dark hair and my stubborn streak. But he had his father's intelligence and his father's ability to see through people. Mom. His voice was confused. Dad. What's going on? Mark straightened his shoulders. Michael, come sit down. We need to have a family discussion. Michael's eyes swept the room, taking in the strange woman, the child in her arms. The tension crackling between his parents like electricity before a storm. Who is she? He asked quietly. This is Jessica, Mark said. And this is your half-brother, Tyler. If I thought my world had exploded before, this was nuclear annihilation. Watching my son's face as he processed the information was like watching someone die in slow motion. His mouth opened, closed. His eyes moved from the child to his father to me. Half-brother? His voice cracked. I know this is a shock, Mark began. A shock. Michael's voice rose. Dad, you have another kid. How long have you been lying to us? It's complicated, no. Michael stepped forward. It's not complicated. You cheated on Mom. You have a secret family. And now you're here doing what? Asking for a divorce. Jessica shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't going according to their plan. Michael, she said softly, I know this is hard. But sometimes adults make difficult choices. Your father and I love each other. We want to build a life together. Build a life together. Michael's laugh was bitter. Lady, you already built a life together. Behind my mother's back. With a kid that's been alive for 3 years. Mark's jaw tightened. That's enough, Michael. Enough. My son turned to face his father fully. Dad, I'm 18 years old. I'm not a child. And I'm not stupid. He walked to the bookshelf beside the fireplace. Ran his fingers along the spines until he found what he was looking for. A thick, leather-bound book. Our family photo album. You really want to do this here? In front of everyone? Michael asked, holding the album. Mark's face went pale. Michael, put that away. Put it away. Michael opened the book. Why would I put away our family memories, Dad? Something was happening. Something I didn't understand. The way Mark was looking at that photo album, like it contained explosives. What are you talking about? I asked. Michael looked at me, then at his father, then at Jessica, who was watching the exchange with growing confusion. Mom, Michael said slowly, do you remember when Dad went on that business trip to Chicago 4 years ago? The one where he said he met important clients. My heart was pounding. Yes. Do you remember what else happened that week? I searched my memory. 4 years ago. What had been so significant about that week? The conference, I said slowly. Your father went to a medical conference. What else, Mom? And then it hit me. Like a sledgehammer to the chest. Your accident, I whispered. Michael nodded grimly. My car accident. When I was in the hospital for 3 days. When I almost died. The room fell silent except for the sound of rain against the windows. Mark's face had gone ashen. Jessica was looking between Michael and Mark with growing alarm. I don't understand, she said. Michael opened the photo album, flipped through pages until he found what he was looking for. A series of photos from the hospital. Me sitting beside his bed, holding his hand, crying over his bandaged face. These pictures are time-stamped, Michael said quietly. July 15th through July 18th. 4 years ago. He held up the book so everyone could see. Dad, Michael continued, his voice steady but deadly, you want to tell Jessica where you were those 4 days? While your son was fighting for his life in the ICU? Mark's mouth opened but no sound came out. Because I'll tell her, Michael said. You were in Chicago. At your conference. Meeting Jessica. Starting your affair. While your family was falling apart. Jessica's face went white. Mark, you want to know the really sick part? Michael wasn't finished. I called you. From my hospital bed. Do you remember, Dad? I was scared. I was 17 years old and I thought I was going to die. And I called my father. Tears were streaming down my face now. I remembered those calls. Michael asking over and over where his dad was. Me making excuses. Covering for Mark. You told me you'd be there the next morning, Michael continued. You promised me you'd catch the first flight home. But you didn't, did you, Dad? Mark's silence was deafening. You know what you told me instead? Michael's voice broke slightly. You told me to be strong. To take care of Mom. That business was business and family was family, and sometimes they conflicted. He flipped to another page in the album. A photo of him in his hospital bed. Alone. While his father was with another woman in another city. Family was family, Michael repeated. Unless there was a pretty blonde waiting in a hotel room. Jessica's hands were shaking. The child in her arms had started to fuss, sensing the tension. Mark, she said quietly. You told me you were divorced. You said your family situation was resolved. I never said you let me believe it. Jessica's voice rose. I've been with you for 4 years thinking you were a single father with an amicable divorce. Jessica, let me explain. Explain what? That you lied to me. That you lied to your wife. That while I was falling in love with you, your son was in the hospital. The child started crying. Loud, heartbreaking sobs that filled the room. Michael walked over to Jessica. Held out his arms. Can I? He asked gently. Jessica, tears streaming down her face, passed the little boy to Michael. My son cradled his half-brother with surprising tenderness. Hey, little man, he whispered. It's okay. None of this is your fault. And that's when I saw it. The look that passed between Jessica and Michael. Understanding. Recognition. They were both victims here. Both casualties of Mark's deception. Jessica, I said quietly. How much did he tell you about us? She wiped her eyes. He said you two had grown apart. That you were getting divorced anyway. That it was just paperwork. And our son. He said Michael was in college. That he barely came home. That you were all practically strangers living in the same house. Michael laughed bitterly. Strangers. Dad, I've called you every week for the past year. We have dinner together every Sunday. We watch football every Monday night. Mark finally found his voice. This isn't how I wanted. How you wanted what? I interrupted. To destroy our family? To break our son's heart? To make a fool of this woman who clearly loves you? I love Jessica, Mark said defensively. No, you don't, Michael said quietly, still holding Tyler. If you loved her, you would have told her the truth. If you loved her, you wouldn't have let her believe she was starting a life with an honest man. Tyler had calmed down in Michael's arms. The little boy looked up at his older brother with wide, curious eyes. He looks like you did at that age, I told Michael. Yeah, Michael said softly. Poor kid. Jessica sat down heavily on the sofa. Mark, I need to ask you something. And I need the truth this time. Mark nodded warily. Were you ever going to tell me about the hospital? About your son's accident? It wasn't relevant, not relevant. Jessica's voice was sharp. Your child almost died and it wasn't relevant. You abandoned your family in their darkest hour and it wasn't relevant. I came back 2 days later, I said quietly. After the doctors said Michael was stable. After the crisis was over. After I'd spent 48 hours thinking my son might die. You came back with flowers, Michael added. And apologies. And promises that business would never come between us again. I meant it, Mark said weakly. Did you? I asked. Because according to Jessica, you've been seeing her for 4 years. Which means every business trip since then. Every late night. Every weekend conference. You were with her. Mark's silence was answer enough. Jessica stood up slowly. Walked to the coffee table. Picked up the manila folder containing the divorce papers. Mark, she said quietly, I think I understand now why you wanted Sarah to sign these so quickly. Jessica, you wanted to control the narrative. Make it seem like the marriage ended because of her problems. Her drinking. Her mental health. Make yourself the victim. She opened the folder, scanned the first page. Irreconcilable differences, she read aloud, citing Sarah's substance abuse issues and emotional instability as contributing factors. I felt sick. You made me sound like an unfit mother. And you, Jessica said, turning to Mark, come out looking like the long-suffering husband who finally found happiness with someone else. It's not like that, it's exactly like that. Jessica closed the folder. Do you know what I was doing 4 years ago, Mark? When you were falling in love with me while your son was in the hospital? Mark shook his head. I was taking care of my dying mother. I was 26 years old, working 2 jobs, and watching the woman who raised me waste away from cancer. The room fell silent. You know why I fell for you so hard? Because you seemed stable. Mature. Like someone who understood responsibility and family. She laughed bitterly. You told me about your business success. Your beautiful home. Your plans for the future. But you never mentioned that while you were courting me, your family was in crisis. Jessica, please, do you know what I would have done if you'd told me the truth? If you'd said I have a wife and a son, and my son is in the hospital, but I think I'm falling in love with you. Mark didn't answer. I would have told you to go home to your family. I would have told you to figure out your marriage before you started something new. Because that's what decent people do, Mark. Tyler started fussing again in Michael's arms. My son bounced him gently, making soft shushing sounds. He's hungry, Jessica said, reaching into her purse for a bottle. I can feed him, Michael offered. Jessica looked surprised. You don't have to, he's my brother, Michael said simply. And none of this is his fault. As my 18-year-old son fed his 3-year-old half-brother, I realized something profound was happening. This wasn't just about Mark's betrayal anymore. This was about family. Real family. The kind that forms not just through blood, but through love and loyalty and doing the right thing. Mark, I said quietly, I want you to explain something to me. He looked at me warily. 4 years ago, when Michael was in the hospital, I called you crying. Do you remember? He nodded reluctantly. I told you the doctors weren't sure if he'd have permanent brain damage. I told you I was scared. I begged you to come home. I remember. And you told me you'd be there as soon as you could. That you just had to finish some important meetings. Business is complicated. No, I interrupted. Love is complicated. Business is just business. And you chose business over your son's life. That's not fair. Michael looked up from feeding Tyler. Dad, what would have been fair is having my father there when I woke up from brain surgery. What would have been fair is not having to comfort Mom while she fell apart because her husband wasn't answering his phone. I answered hours later. When it was convenient for you. Jessica was watching this exchange with growing horror. Mark, please tell me you're going to deny this. Mark's silence stretched on and on. Oh my God, Jessica whispered. It's true. All of it. She sank back onto the sofa. I feel sick. Jessica, Mark tried again. You have to understand what? That you're selfish. That you're a liar. That you're the kind of man who starts an affair while his son is fighting for his life. Tyler had finished his bottle. Michael lifted him onto his shoulder, patting his back with practiced ease. Dad, he said quietly, I need to ask you something. Mark nodded. In the past 4 years, how many family events have you missed because of business? Mark's face grew pale. My high school graduation speech. I was valedictorian. You missed it for a conference. Michael, my 18th birthday party. You left early for a phone call. That was important, Mom's promotion celebration at work. You couldn't make it because of client meetings. Each item was a knife to the heart. I was remembering now. All the times Mark had seemed distracted. All the times his phone was more important than his family. My college interviews, Michael continued. You were supposed to drive me to State University. But you had an emergency meeting. You got in anyway, that's not the point, Dad. The point is that every single one of those business commitments was really about her. He nodded toward Jessica, who was crying quietly. Every time you chose work over family, you were really choosing your secret life over your real life. Tyler had fallen asleep against Michael's chest. The little boy looked peaceful, innocent, completely unaware that his existence had just shattered two families. And now, Michael continued, you want Mom to sign away 20 years of marriage for $500,000 so you can make your double life official. It's not that simple. It is that simple, Dad. You're a cheater. And a liar. And now you want to rewrite history to make yourself the hero. Jessica stood up suddenly. I can't do this. Jessica, wait, no, Mark. I won't wait. I won't be part of this. She walked over to Michael, held out her arms for Tyler. I'm sorry, she said to him quietly. I'm sorry your father put you in this position. I'm sorry I was part of hurting your family. Michael gently transferred the sleeping child to her arms. It's not your fault. You didn't know. Jessica looked at me. Sarah, I'm so sorry. If I had known, if I had any idea. I believe you, I said. And I meant it. Looking at this woman, holding her child, tears streaming down her face, I could see she was as much a victim as I was. What are you doing? Mark demanded. I'm leaving, Jessica said simply. You can't. We have plans. We have a life together. We have lies together, she corrected. Everything between us is built on deception. She moved toward the door, then stopped. Turned back to face him. Mark, answer me honestly. Were you ever going to tell me about the hospital? About Michael's accident? Mark's hesitation was answer enough. And if I hadn't found out tonight, how long would you have kept lying to me? Jessica, you're overreacting, am I? Because it seems to me like you're the kind of man who lies to everyone. Your wife. Your son. Your mistress. How do I know you haven't been lying to me about other things? Mark's face went white. What do you mean? I mean, maybe I should ask Sarah some questions about your character. About your history. About the things you might have conveniently forgotten to mention. She looked at me expectantly. I took a deep breath. There were so many things I could say. So many secrets I'd kept to protect Mark's reputation. But looking at this woman, holding her child, betrayed and confused, I felt something shift inside me. Jessica, I said quietly, how much do you know about Mark's first marriage? Mark's face went ashen. Sarah, don't. His first marriage? Jessica looked confused. I'm his second wife, I explained. He was married before. To his college sweetheart, Amy. Jessica's eyes widened. He told me I was his first real love. That he'd never been married before. Amy died in a car accident, I continued. But not before she filed for divorce. Sarah, stop, Mark warned. Why did Amy want a divorce, Mark? I asked. Tell Jessica why your first wife left you. This is ancient history because he cheated on her too, I said quietly. With me. The room fell completely silent except for the sound of Tyler's soft breathing. Jessica stared at Mark with growing horror. Oh my God. I was the other woman 22 years ago, I continued. Mark was married to Amy. They were trying to have children. She was going through fertility treatments. And Mark started an affair with me. Sarah, please, Amy found out about us when she came home early from a doctor's appointment. She found us in her bed. Jessica's face had gone completely white. She filed for divorce the next day. Moved in with her sister. And 2 weeks later, she was driving to her lawyer's office to sign the final papers when a drunk driver ran a red light. Tears were streaming down Jessica's face now. So when Mark tells you that I'm his first real love, when he tells you that our marriage was already over, when he tells you that he's finally found happiness, remember that he said the exact same things to me about Amy. That's not fair, Mark protested. You and I have been together 20 years. We have a son together. It's completely different. Is it? I asked. Because 4 years ago, you started seeing Jessica while you were married to me. Just like 22 years ago, you started seeing me while you were married to Amy. Michael was staring at his father with disgust. Dad, you have a pattern. And Jessica, I continued, when Mark told you he was getting divorced anyway, that it was just paperwork, that we were strangers living in the same house, Those are the exact same lies he told me about Amy. Jessica sank into a chair, still clutching Tyler. I think I'm going to be sick. The only difference, I said, is that Amy died before she could warn me. But I'm still alive. And I can warn you. Mark's face was red with anger. You're destroying everything, Sarah. I'm not destroying anything, Mark. I'm revealing the truth. There's a difference. You're being vindictive. No, Michael interrupted. She's being honest. For the first time in this whole conversation, someone is being completely honest. He stood up and walked to the bookshelf again. Pulled out another album. This one older. More worn. You want to see vindictive, Dad? You want to see what destruction looks like? He opened the album to a page near the front. Photos of a beautiful young woman with short brown hair and bright eyes. This is Amy, he said, showing the pictures to Jessica. Your predecessor. Jessica stared at the photos. She was beautiful. She was 24 when she died, Michael said. Same age as you were when Dad started his affair with you. How do you know about her? Mark demanded. Because unlike you, Mom never lied to me about our family history. She told me about Amy. About how you two met. About how your first marriage ended. He flipped through more pages. Photos of Mark and Amy on their wedding day. Looking happy. In love. Like they'd last forever. Look familiar? Michael asked Jessica. Jessica was crying harder now. We have pictures just like these. Of course you do. Dad's playbook never changes. Michael closed the album and set it aside. Jessica, I'm going to tell you something, and I want you to really hear me. She looked up at him through her tears. You seem like a good person. You clearly love my dad, and you love your son. But if you stay with him, if you let him make you complicit in this lie, you're going to become someone you don't want to be. What do you mean? Right now, you're a victim. You were deceived. You were manipulated. You made choices based on false information. He paused, making sure she was listening. But if you stay with him after tonight, knowing what you know now, then you become a willing participant in destroying our family. Jessica looked at Mark, then at me, then back at Michael. He's right, she whispered. Jessica, you're not thinking clearly, Mark started. No, she said firmly. I'm thinking clearly for the first time in 4 years. She stood up, still holding Tyler. Mark, I need you to understand something. When I fell in love with you, I fell in love with the man I thought you were. Honest. Loyal. Someone who'd been hurt but was ready to build something real. I am that man. No, you're not. You're a man who lies to everyone who loves him. You're a man who abandons his family in crisis. You're a man who rewrites history to make himself the victim. She walked to the coffee table and picked up the divorce papers. And you're a man who would destroy his wife's reputation to cover up his own crimes. She ripped the papers in half. Jessica. Mark lunged forward. Don't, she said sharply. Don't you dare touch me. Tyler woke up and started crying. Jessica bounced him gently, her voice soothing despite her tears. It's okay, baby. Mommy's here. Everything's going to be okay. She looked at Mark one last time. I'm taking Tyler home. To my apartment. Don't follow us. Don't call us. Don't contact us at all until you figure out who you really want to be. You can't just leave, watch me. She moved toward the door, then stopped. Turned to face me. Sarah, I'm sorry. For everything. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I needed to say it. Jessica, I said quietly, can I ask you something? She nodded. What are you going to do now? She looked down at Tyler, who had calmed down in her arms. I'm going to raise my son. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to be honest with him about his father when he's old enough to understand. She paused. And I'm going to make sure he never becomes the kind of man who thinks love is disposable. With that, she walked out of our house and out of our lives. Mark stared after her for a long moment, then turned to face Michael and me. Are you happy now? He asked bitterly. Happy? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Mark, my marriage is over. My family is destroyed. My son has just learned that his father is a chronic cheater and a liar. Do I look happy to you? You turned her against me. I told her the truth. The same truth I wish someone had told me 22 years ago. Michael walked over to his father. Dad, I need you to leave. This is my house, actually, I said quietly. It's not. Both Mark and Michael looked at me. The house is in my name, I explained. I inherited it from my grandmother. You never had any legal claim to it. Mark's face went white. That's not possible. Check the deed, I said. It's been in my family for 3 generations. You've been living in my house for 20 years. But the mortgage, there is no mortgage. It was paid off before we got married. Mark sank onto the sofa, the weight of his situation finally hitting him. So let me get this straight, Michael said slowly. Dad, you don't own this house. You don't have custody of me anymore because I'm 18. Jessica just left you. Your secret is out. And the divorce papers that were supposed to make Mom look like the bad guy just got torn up. Mark said nothing. What exactly was your endgame here? Michael continued. Did you really think you could just walk in here, force Mom to sign away her rights, and ride off into the sunset with your mistress and secret child? It wasn't supposed to go like this, Mark said weakly. How was it supposed to go? I asked. You were supposed to sign the papers. Take the money. Move on with your life. And you were supposed to get everything without anyone knowing what you really are, Michael added. Mark looked up at his son. Michael, you have to understand. I understand perfectly, Dad. You're a coward. The word hung in the air like a slap. You're a coward who destroys families and then blames everyone else for the destruction. You're a coward who lies to the people who love him rather than face the truth about himself. That's enough. No, Dad. It's not enough. It's not nearly enough. Michael walked to the window and stared out at the rain. Do you want to know what the worst part of all this is? Mark didn't answer. The worst part is that I actually looked up to you. I thought you were this successful businessman who'd built a great life for us. I thought you were someone worth becoming. He turned around to face his father. But you're not a success, Dad. You're a fraud. Everything you have, you took from someone else. This house. Your family. Your reputation. None of it was ever really yours. Michael, and now Tyler is going to grow up without a father because you can't stop lying. Just like I'm going to finish growing up without a father because you chose your own selfish desires over your family. Mark's face crumpled. For the first time all evening, he looked genuinely remorseful. Son, I never meant for it to happen this way. But you meant for it to happen, Michael said. You made 1,000 little choices over 4 years that led to this moment. And every single one of those choices put yourself first. I watched my husband, my soon-to-be ex-husband, sitting on our sofa, broken and exposed. Part of me felt sorry for him. After 20 years together, you don't just stop caring about someone overnight. But a bigger part of me felt something I hadn't felt in years. Relief. Mark, I said quietly, I want you to pack a bag and leave tonight. He looked up at me with desperate eyes. Sarah, please. We can work this out. We can go to counseling. We can fix this. Fix what? The lying. The cheating. The fact that you abandoned our son when he nearly died. The fact that you were willing to destroy my reputation to protect your own. People make mistakes. This wasn't a mistake, Mark. This was 4 years of deliberate choices. This was a calculated plan to have your cake and eat it too. I'll cut off all contact with Jessica. I'll never see her again. You have a son with her, I pointed out. You can't just cut off contact. Then I'll figure something out. Like what? Like you figured out how to balance 2 families for 4 years. Like you figured out how to lie to everyone who trusted you. Mark had no answer. Besides, I continued, it's too late. The damage is done. Michael will never trust you again. I'll never trust you again. And Jessica certainly won't take you back after what she learned tonight. So that's it. 20 years of marriage and you're just going to throw it away. I'm not throwing it away, Mark. You already did that. I stood up and walked to the front door, opened it wide. Your clothes will be in storage by the end of the week. Your mail will be forwarded to whatever address you give me. And my lawyer will be in touch about the divorce proceedings. What about the business? My clients? What about them? I built that company from nothing with my financial support, I pointed out. With my emotional support. With my belief in you. But you built it on lies, Mark. Just like everything else in your life. Mark stood up slowly, looked around the room like he was seeing it for the last time. This is really it. This is how we end. This is how you ended it, I corrected. For years ago when you chose another woman over your family. He walked toward the door, then stopped. Sarah, I did love you. I do love you. No, I said firmly. You loved what I represented. Stability. Respectability. A beautiful home and a successful family to come back to after your adventures. I paused. But if you had actually loved me, you never would have betrayed me. If you had actually loved Michael, you never would have abandoned him. If you had actually loved Tyler, you wouldn't have made him the secret that destroyed 2 families. Mark walked past me through the door. Stopped on the front porch. What am I supposed to do now? What you should have done 4 years ago, I said. Figure out who you really are. And then decide if you like that person enough to change. I closed the door and locked it.